It's easy to get lost. This is The Revenue Maze, and I'm Valerie Cobb. Join me as we navigate the halls, dead ends, and U-turns on our path towards upward growth trajectory. The Revenue Maze is sponsored by Lodestar URY, guidance and execution through fractional revenue leadership, uncovering hidden revenue streams, and empowering small business growth through process-driven sales. It's so exciting to be on the Revenue Maze. Today's guest is strategic marketing expert, host of the Hardcore Marketing Show, author of Marketing Automation Unleashed, the Strategic Path for B2B Growth, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, fractional chief marketing officer for several growth-oriented companies, founder and podcaster architect at Ringmaster Conversational Marketing. Wait for it, Casey Cheshire. Welcome, Casey.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be on this. I have listened. I am just honored to be on here and talking to you today.
I am so excited for this show because you and I have a lot in common. Growth-oriented companies. That's what it's all about.
Yes.
But before we get into all of that, you know, the title of the show is The Revenue Maze. And because of that, I need to ask you, and I need you to be real honest with the group and the listeners. What is one thing, just one thing that you can help assist small businesses getting out of the revenue maze?
Absolutely. One of the main reasons we're stuck in the maze is that 90% of what we think we know about how and why our customers and prospects buy from us is complete and utter bullshit. And we're actually just stringing along sale to sale, one unlucky moment from collapse. You don't actually know why they're buying at all. In fact, and I've been guilty of this. I'm in there. It's my own biases. I used to see a commercial, and if it absolutely sucked, I thought that was a shitty investment, but I might not have been the audience. So we are full of all these biases. Why would you buy that software? Why would you make that purchase decision? You're not them. Even if you're a marketer selling to marketers, buying marketing software, you still may not be in the same seat that they are. Maybe you used to be there, but not anymore. So we have all these biases, all these errant thinking, all these thoughts that we just make up in our minds, all these crazy thoughts that say this is why they're buying, and it's not the case. We actually have no idea. Maybe you have 10% of an idea. It might be something completely different. And all we need to do to fix this is actually talk to our prospects, talk to our customers, and we're just doing it wrong. We're doing it wrong. We think that talking to them is like a sales conversation. That's a different kind of conversation. We're not actually asking and giving them attention. And this drives me absolutely bonkers, and I can't stand it.
You mean our biases actually cause?
Yeah. It's so aggravating. I understand. I've been there, and I've been in that seat, and I've been immature too, and thought that I just knew what was best for my buyer, even if they were like completely different industry. And what do I know about a CIO's job, right? Or whatever software I'm selling. Even if you were a CIO, you're probably out of the loop, and you're maybe better informed. But man, if you haven't been that buyer, you are really out of it, and you got to take a step back and have a conversation.
Okay. So I think we're all guilty of that a little bit, right? I mean, 100%. Preconceived notions and biases. In fact, I'm laughing because my daughter wants me to buy a Subaru, and I can't bring myself to do it because of a commercial that they have.
Really? What happened? Was it a shitty commercial?
It just is. Sometimes it just feels so far out there, the Subaru ads, right? And it resonates with certain audiences. And of course, you're not going to get everybody. You're just not. I mean, that's just how it is, right? Mm-hmm. But, I can't envision myself in a Subaru due to that ad. Isn't that the funniest thing? And you and I've talked about this in the past. people buy for their reasons. That's it.
Yes.
Right. So tell us a little bit, Casey, give us a couple of pointers on how you've helped some of these growth companies that you're working for get out of that. I mean, that's really what you're doing, right? Tell us about it.
It started with my own. I started a podcast, very much like this one. And I just started talking to them. And lo and behold, when I just shut up and listened for a second, I don't know. I heard this recently. I think it was Jordan Peterson said, you can listen or you can think, but you can't do both at the same time. Right. And like, how telling is that? Sometimes, and I've been guilty of this even on a podcast or in a business meeting or having coffee with a customer, and they're talking and I'm already thinking, and I'm thinking while they're talking about either how I can leverage what they're talking about or what I'm going to say next, or how my family's doing after the recent thing we did this weekend. Like, if I'm thinking, I'm not listening. And if I'm listening, I can do my thinking later. Right. So we get into this. It's not just a matter of talk to the customer. Right. And if I led with that, first of all, in this podcast, people would be like, yeah. Cool trite stuff. What a wimpy podcast. What a wimpy guest, because he's just saying, talk to your customer. Everyone knows that. Yeah. Everyone knows that, but we don't do it. And I think we don't do it for two reasons. One, we don't know how to get them in a situation where we can actually have this kind of a conversation. And it's not a sales call where we're trying to get something from them, some sort of action. We're literally just trying to learn from them. We're just literally trying to discover their thinking and their words and their process. All the good marketing comes from that. But how do you get them to sit down with you? And in some cases, it's just enough just to ask them and they'll just do it. But sometimes for us, that feels weird. Oh, is going to be weird. Are they going to say no to my request? So we don't know how to get them in a situation. And then the second thing is, once we get them and get their attention, either coffee or on a podcast or in just a Zoom call, we don't know what to ask them. We don't know what to say. We don't want to just kind of be staring at them like a first date, wondering if maybe they'll tell us something without us having to ask them that. Right. So these are the two problems that I experienced myself. Right. So because of that, so many of us hide behind the technology, right? I did it in marketing. I know even in, sales at least is having conversations, but sometimes they've got so many check boxes to address on that sales call. Did I qualify this person? Did I this? Did I that? And also sales can very much be focused in the moment. So you need some sort of either sales leadership or marketing leadership or someone to take a step back and say, I get it. All these deals are happening right now, but from a big picture, let's just talk to a customer, find out what are their problems, what are their challenges. Not that they have a dog and 3 cats and they don't like Subarus, right? But actually, what was the thing that triggered the search in the first place? Why did you start looking for different vendors in this regard? That's a great question to start with. Take me back in time to when this first came up and you're like, oh, geez, we need to look for something. Like, what happened? Even finding that out is amazing.
Wow. As I have trained, it's really interesting. Listening to understand is kind of, if I were going to summarize what you're saying right there, is it's really key because, I'm a big fan of Daniel Pink and To Sell Is Human. And people put a bad rap on sales because we don't listen, or we've got an ulterior motive, or we don't right? Mm-hmm. Yet, if you're really doing a sales job properly, your ultimate goal is to provide somebody with some value that takes some pain away, right? I mean, that's when the kid runs out to the street and you stop them from running out to the street, right? And it's just when you do exactly what you just said, it just creates a really great moment of really showing why I got into sales to begin with, right? Is to help people right into something. Yeah, it's a great vocation for a lot of reasons, but sales team members get a lot of head trash over just product because they feel that feeling of I'm not helping somebody, it's not true to me, it's not this, not and the other. And if they just shut up and listen, instead of have the goal of doing, like you're saying, if they would just shut up and listen and really listen to understand, then they do get at the root of what a person is really looking for, and then they become true to themselves, right? The
Yeah,
salesman. So the
I love
same as
that.
marketing, if you listen, you know, that's the whole point. To position any kind of product or anything, you've got to be able to listen to the audience that is you're selling to, for
Right.
sure.
I love that you mentioned the pain, right? The
Yeah.
pain of, you know, you didn't get into sales to trick people into buying software.
No.
Well, I know some SaaS apps that's almost a core value at this point, but
Yeah.
that's not why you got into it. You wanted to help people. Maybe you wanted to make a lot of money, or maybe do both at the same time. But either way, it was like, you can't all be in the Peace Corps, but at least you can try to help somebody out who's experiencing pain. But then the question is like, what is the pain? And when you brought that up, I was thinking, yeah, what is the pain? That's one of the things we're trying to find out. And I think that's where biases come in place too. We were making this software. Here's this cool feature. We're guessing at the pain.
Yeah.
This reminds me of that old movie, Kevin Costner, Field of Dreams, right?
Oh
Where
yeah.
like that voice is like, ease his pain, ease his pain. And then you're like, he's like, whose pain? What pain? You stupid freaking cornfield. Give me a little bit more than like ease his pain. Who, where, why, what do I have to do? And somehow he ends up going to Boston. Come on, Fenway Park. Went last night, was amazing. But like he goes there, and maybe that's where the quote happens. But either way, it's like, can you give me a little more than that? But and we got to listen. We got to find out what is the actual pain that's causing that. And that's why going back to the very beginning and saying, tell me about, you're just minding your own business, doing your job, and then it's like something's happening and you're like, we got to look for this tool. Were you just winging it? Would something happen? I had this great conversation with a brilliant woman named Adele Ravella, and she is the author of Buyer Persona, the book Buyer Persona. And literally on my show, I was an idiot, and I was literally I was an idiot on live on video, thinking that a buyer persona was like what HubSpot had told me it was. And like, it's just a cute little
Isn't
piece of
it?
paper. No, it's not.
I'm
And
just teasing you. Keep
like, no,
going.
I know, but like, oh, this is a marketing Mary. She has cats. She likes puppies, and she's probably in her mid 30s, and blah blah blah. It's like that's more of a buyer profile, and you can't do too much with that, right? But if we're talking about a buyer persona, we want to know what made Mary buy, what made her search for it in the first place, and then how does she buy? And if you can answer those questions alone, and beautiful Adele Ravella, her book, you should check that out. But she schooled me on this, and I realized if you do it wrong, you have zero actionable info, right? So the idea of, I know Mary likes cats, who cares? What do I do? Offer kitty litter as a part of the deal? Like, what do I do with that? But if you know that, right, the trigger for marketing Mary was that her boss was like, I need you to get your leads increased by 1,000% or you're going to get fired or something. Okay. Now what happened before that? Well, in the organization, we had a downturn. Okay. Like, we know that this happened, and now we can seek other companies out who are having the same kind of situation and proactively be there for them when they're ready. Right. So 1,000 ideas come from that. And all we had to do was ask marketing Mary and all of her cohorts and all of her friends, tell me about that time when that need first came to mind, right? And that's just one question, but you can see there's so much action that could come from that to ease their pain.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you bring up something really interesting to me, and that is the subject of even AI in being able to do that in a marketing set situation. A lot of us are big on what we would call account-based marketing, which is, especially in business to business, we're not selling business to consumer. Typically, we're selling to other businesses, right? And when we talk about trying to map that journey, because that's kind of what you said, this is why they're buying this way, this is all the stuff behind it. It's just mind-boggling, even the workflows and everything, to pull that up and have a small business become profitable at identifying that. It's much easier to just take a demographic. They are this age to this age, this revenue to this revenue, to this, but actually trying to map how somebody behaves
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's part of the reason I am a Trek fan. I am tech fan. I am everything. I struggle with how machine learning or AI is going to bridge that gap, but that may be for a whole nother podcast. But I'm just curious your thoughts on something like
Yeah.
that.
I think we're both going to come across as troglodytes on this episode, but you know what? I like to say connect before tech, right? You got to connect with your prospects, your customers, ask them these questions long before you do tech. Otherwise, what does tech do? It just makes whatever bad, shitty marketing, sales, service you were doing 10 times worse, because now it's in front of that many more people in their face, annoying them, getting spam, and people now know 10 times more clearly that you don't know anything about them thanks to these tools. So yeah, these are like effectively silver bullet distractions from us.
I love that.
And
Silver
you've got to
bullet
connect.
distractions.
Got to connect before tech. Exactly.
So
So let's talk about it. Let's talk about connecting. Can we do that?
yeah, let's talk about connecting. Let's talk, because obviously your podcast has helped with that and sifted through what I call the digital minutia, right? They get to know a little bit more about your personality and things like that. So yeah, let's talk about connecting. Go ahead.
So here's the thought, right? How do we get them to have a conversation with us?
Mhm.
And you mentioned ABM, and I've been doing marketing for so long. ABM right now is like the emperor's new clothes. It's like a shell game. It's just another thing. And you know what? It disguises the game that's being played. That game that marketing is playing is the notice me game, right?
Yep.
So all this decoration aside, we're trying to say notice me, right?
Yep.
And then even with ABM, it all still comes down to a game called Get on the Phone with Me, right? Now, notice me, that can be such a challenge. I had a friend come to me who was potentially going to do some sales for the SaaS startup, and he was saying, "Oh, they're looking for CIOs, and this is how they proceed." And he was like, "Well, what do you think? What would a good marketing 1 year look like to you? 1 year, 2 year? How do you get their attention and all that? How do you play the notice me game?" Right? Was his question essentially, and I had to think, well, okay, traditionally speaking, okay, a lot of events, we're going to spend heavy to be at these events, all the right places. Notice me, notice my big booth, notice my fleece blanket giveaway, notice me. We're going to try to harass them to notice me. We're going to send them the socks of their alma mater and ABM terms, right? We're going to notice me, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to spend a lot of money over 2 years, and hopefully that CIO, who he was going after, will notice them, or at least have heard of them. That doesn't mean they even have a problem to solve for them. They will notice them. Very expensive, right? Status quo of marketing and sales. Play the notice me game, and then but either way, you got to play the get on the phone with me game, which we'll get to in a second. So I then thought, well, you know what? I've been experimenting with podcasting, and I've had so many amazing conversations. With my last agency, I was looking for CMOs that had particular technology tool, right? Had Pardot, and so I would just interview them. I just asked them, "Hey, would you be on the show?" And then sometimes we make a great connection on that show. We'd learn a lot from each other. We'd build some trust with each other, and then some deals accidentally started happening, right? I made this podcast just to have conversations and learn from people and make content, and that all happened, of course. But I got off a call with this CMO, super badass leader, and she's just brilliant. She was schooling me the whole time. I loved it. And then after the call, we're not recording anymore, and she mentioned, my team is moving from Marketo to Pardot, right? And that is exactly what my agency did. Nothing but, right? That was what we specialized in. It was like, well, holy crap, that's what we do. We can help you out. We can do this. And she's like, well, great. You saved me from trying to find someone I can trust. I trust you. Let's talk. Let's get our teams talking. We got our teams talking. Like barely was even a sales cycle because we got our teams connected, and like an $80,000 migration deal came out of that. And I wasn't seeking that out. And just happened. So I thought, what happens if I actually seek that out, right? What happens if I make my audience my ideal customer profile, right? If I make my audience the ideal person I want to talk to. Now, playing the old school game, getting those CIOs would be that notice me game for 2 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Instead, I realized, man, my friend, we could get a little podcast going and we could get those CIOs on a call within weeks, right? It's like, why would I ever go back and do that old school method when I can do this new school method, when I can just have a podcast conversation with someone? And then that second game, which is get on the phone with me, which, by the way, no one wants to get on the phone with you. So we have to kind of trick and cajole them, or even just force them to get on the phone with me. And then they resent it, right? So the second game, even if you're doing ABM, it doesn't matter. You still are stuck doing the get on the phone with me game. And socks don't magically make people want to get on the phone, right? So, but what does make people magically get on the phone is a podcast. And the difference is, we're giving them attention and we're not trying to take their time, right? We're not trying to take time out of their calendar. We're trying to give them time out of our calendar. And there's this brilliant guy, and Dan Sullivan, he has this quote: everyone's competing to get your attention, but no one's competing to give you attention. And that's what a podcast does. It says, look, it's not about me. I want to learn from you. I want to give you my attention. Come be featured on the show. And who says no to that, right? And so it's like, okay, I'll get on the phone with you. That's why that CEO or that CIO or whoever you're trying to, the CMO, it's like, yeah, I'd love to have a marketing strategy conversation with you. Let's do it, right? That's why I'm here. I'd love to have a conversation about this topic. I'm here. Let's go. And that's how you skip those games of notice me and of call me, by simply inviting someone to be on a podcast.
Yeah, I love that, because that has been sort of the sift through the minutia kind of, thing. And if you really are trying to help people, giving them attention is helping, right? I mean, highlighting them. When I invite guests on my podcast, I'm like, listen, this is all about you. This is not about me.
Yeah.
This is
you
what
didn't name it the Valerie Show.
I didn't name it the Valerie. Exactly. This is all about you, and helping you. I had somebody who came to me for my services, and I said, honestly, right now you need a lot of PR. And so what I can do is have you on my podcast, and that will help you, but I can't help you right now with what you're doing. I don't want to end up selling you something that's just not going to work. Right. So,
right.
And it's also why I do a sales audit for people first. It's right. Like, if we don't fit and I can't help you, I will make sure that I direct you in the right direction, if nothing else. Right. So when you are saying that you are putting them on there on your podcast to have it be about them, your help at the base level of the mantra of, hey, there's certain products and services that help people out, and this can help you, that checks all the boxes, right? Of being what we call Catherine Brown's being a good human, right? Yeah. You're really being a good human.
Yes. And you know what? When they come on the show and you've done a little prep in advance and you got them ready to rock that thing, they come out swinging. You ask them that first question and they're just nailing it. And they look like a rock star, right? So good. And then they're going to want to share it with their tribe and with their network on LinkedIn. And it's not like you're pulling a fast one over them, because you literally are featuring them, and you're being a good human, right? You're like putting someone in the spotlight. And that feels really good too. That feels really good to be able to help people that way. And so to your point, in sales, you're just trying to provide a little value to help them, give them information, however you can help them attack this pain, right? So this comes into the next point. Well, how do we discover that pain? So that first question isn't about pain. You don't lead in with, nice to meet you, what ails you, right? We're not positioned, right? And also, people are very reticent to talk about that kind of thing on a podcast, at least right out of the gate. So right out of the gate, first question is like, tell me something you are passionate about and you totally kick ass at, that everyone else that listens to this show can totally learn from you, right? But then later on during the show, you can ask questions like, what is your biggest challenge, or what keeps you up at night? I often like to ask a question for my agency where I would say, tell me about marketing automation. And I know the speaker I'm talking to has part up, but I don't need to get weird on them, right? Yep. Keep it level. Something, tell me, what's your take on marketing automation? And then people will tell you, you know what? I love it. I hate it. I've never quite gotten to work. Our team is so frustrated with it. We're looking at migrating. We're looking to do this and that. And guess what? now I know their pain, right? Now there's plenty more pain, and you can have offline conversations. Maybe you're even too sensitive for recordings, but now you've got a sense for when you're done the conversation. I would often follow up and say, I heard you have a challenge with this terrible thing. I know they keep changing the tech on you. Someone on my team's an expert. Let's connect it with your person. Let's get them chatting, right? And let's just see if we can solve this.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what happens when I have people even on this podcast. I learn wonderful things about each one of them. And then I think, oh, wow, this person could use this. And you've all of a sudden connected with them and said, hey, maybe I can't help you, but I can connect you with 3 people who can help you. Right. And
totally.
And then maybe the listeners are going, wait, I could help this person and do the same thing. Right. And so I love that. So how did you get here, Casey? I mean,
right?
You didn't arrive overnight in discovering.
Well, can I actually just throw a wrench in your machine real quick and maybe embarrass you for a second?
Okay.
One of the things you mentioned about, doing the audit or, having these conversations, and if you can't help people, then you're not gonna force feed them your service, right? Or you're not gonna try to trap people. That is like the sign of anyone who does that should be a marker for all of us of like, this is someone you can trust. And you should find a way to work with them, because the number of people you can trust, vendor wise, is very limited. At least really trust them. So a podcast is a great start, but nothing like a podcast and then having someone tell you you're not ready for my services yet, or you need this other thing first. Did that cost me $100,000? Maybe, but I don't want your money. I want you to see you do better. Right. So a shout out to you. I've worked with you a few times in the past, and you are just an amazing sales leader. So if anyone needs fractional sales leadership, you are the one to go with. And I know this is your show, so I'm going to shut up and tell you about me. But like, I just wanted to say,
this is about you, Casey.
It is about me. Yeah, I can't help myself, but yeah.
I know. It's kind of like the dance of, there's such great things going on. You got to shout it out. And I totally agree. I feel like there's so much out there that is helping just organizations and those things. And sometimes they're just not highlighted enough that people see it. Right. Yeah. And so I've been, especially with like Jed Blount, I'll give him a shout out. He doesn't even know who I am.
Yeah, Jed.
Yeah, Jed. Anyway, the law of familiarity, fanatical prospecting, it really is part of the minutia of the familiarity is the digital deluge of information that's out there, and then trying to narrow down who you can trust. And you can't tell somebody, trust me, because that's the red flag that says, don't trust this person.
Yeah, right. Trust me, you'll be fine. The car is perfect, right?
Yeah.
Sure, bro.
I love it. There's your theater coming out in it.
Yeah, right. Can't help myself. We're gonna start breaking out into Joseph later on. You'll see.
Yes. Joseph is amazing. Donny Osmond. I had a friend. I digress. I had a friend. We lived in the Cayman Islands, and I was coming back to the United States, and she had a record, and it was Donny Osmond. And she's like, "Could you get it signed for me?" And I opened it up to my network back in the day. It was 2000. There was no LinkedIn, no anything. I opened it up to my network, and I got that signed by Donny Osmond for her.
You're amazing. That's incredible. That is so cool.
I don't even know Donny Osmond, but
you should. He should. Shout. Hey, Donny, reach out. You need some. You need you guys.
You need some love.
Yeah. You guys need to connect for sure. So. Anyways, I digress. You're saying, tell me your story and all these things. So
yeah, how'd you get here? I'm curious.
I've always been a little bit one of those, I don't say rule breaker, but like, is there an easier way to do this? Is there a more efficient way to do this? And then also, what's fun? And it really is this sort of combination of passions. And I was always a little bit technical and a little bit of a communicator, and so I loved computers, and I loved communicating and just connecting with people. And I was actually a magician when I was a kid. And I did magic shows.
Trust me, but sleight of the hand.
for the yeah, right, exactly, and then make cards appear out of nowhere. Yeah, I loved reading and learning secrets like magic tricks, and but also the fact that it would just really delight people. So I always loved doing that. But then I was also a bit of a business person as well, because I would perform magic shows for birthday parties, and I of course would charge for that. And man, would parents pay, and I thought $50 was like a lot of money for
It probably was.
yeah, but parents were like, oh, please, if I take him to Fun World, it's going to be 300. Yeah, here, take your $50, clown, but yeah, so I always enjoyed sort of the business aspect of it, but also the performance aspect. And then as tech sort of, grew and grew for us, then I was around just before that became a thing. And so as that came into play, I loved how tech could connect us with people. So for me, even the idea of America Online was just a matter of connecting with someone. And it was fascinating. A funny secret, back in the day, anyone was there, America Online used to charge for the internet, right? The internet,
Yes.
and by the hour, right? Which is
AOL.
crazy to think about now. Oh my gosh. So, but if you needed tech support, you can go to the tech support chat, and then they stopped your billing per hour because obviously you're getting tech support. So I would go to the tech support room and chat with people there because it was free, and it didn't count against my hours. But yeah, it was a matter of just connecting with people. So long and the short is I went to school wondering, do I like computers? Do I like communications? I did both. And I was always sort of trying and experimenting with things, and trying different jobs. I once had someone tell me my resume looked like a circus clown.
Mine
Right?
does too.
Well, the joke's on them because I'm ringmaster.com now. So what's up? It totally looks like it, right? It's like, hello, full circle. But at the same time, it all was connecting with people, and then learning how to use tech to measure that connection, a little bit creative, a little bit analytical.
Yeah. And you are, and that's amazing. And your history has definitely shown that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't imagine, because even when I was going down your intro and all that kind of stuff, I mean, you were part of the Marines, and you've written a book, and you have this production company with Ringmaster. And I think you do a great job at having people feel like they really are listened to, and I think that that's kind of brought you here. But some of the guests would like to know more about kind of you and what makes you tick. Like, what you talked about your passions. We kind of threw in and laced in a little bit of theater. I think I heard you say that you were or still are in part of theater. Tell us a little bit about,
The theater side. I mean, I grew up doing theater, and there's something about it. I always loved it. And it actually happened by accident. This is kind of a funny fifth grade story. I was in fifth grade, and I was nobody special, at least in my own mind. I was just fifth grader. And in the school, the fifth grade had a fifth grade play, and everyone in the fifth grade was going to be in it. And it was this cool play there was maybe like 7 or 8 main characters, and then there were these different scenes where all different other people of different classes would come in and sing songs and do things, and then the 7 characters would get back together again and connect all the scenes together. And there was the cool kid part, and of course I auditioned for that and didn't get it.
Yeah.
But you know what? They actually gave me like the main lead of the whole show.
Oh.
And essentially it was kind of like this nerd. It was kind of like I was like the white Urkel, right? So I was this like nerd kid, and I tried wearing glasses or whatnot. It didn't quite work, but mostly I had just like my Dockers nice and high, suspenders, and a collared shirt. And I was just like, was it typecast? I don't know, but I was being just silly me. And I would rehearse with my dad, and we kind of had some ad lib jokes that I would throw out there. Like, we told these kids, like, I'm going to take them to help them do their school report that they waited too long to finish. And I'd already finished mine, of course. That's not typecast. I would hand out blindfolds. I'm like, I have to take you to my secret computer lab. here's some blindfolds. And I handed out 7 blindfolds to 7 classmates. And at the end, I was like, well, what do you know? Just enough, right? Totally ad-libbed. And then the whole gymnasium, all the parents just are just erupting in laughter. And so that was just the start of like, I can kind of control this whole audience and make them all laugh and make them all smile. But who would have thought, like, it was kind of the nerd part, but it was like the part. And it wasn't so much the attention from everyone else, just the fact that like, wow. And then of course the next year, what was I in Peter Pan? Was I Peter Pan? No. I was Indian number 27, right? So it wasn't like it was this grand, ascent to theatrical winning. But it was a first touch of like, this is fun. I could really do this throughout my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I can just imagine a Casey at 5th grade doing this and making everybody laugh. I just, when you were talking about that, my daughter was just reminding me that she was in a school play at about, it was more, I think 1st or 2nd grade, but her class did Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and she was the kissing, she was the wife, right?
She was the wife. Wow.
I'm sorry, Potiphar's wife.
Potiphar's wife.
Yeah, excuse me. And but she ran around with these big lips, like holding big lips, and she told me how that embarrassed her so bad in front of all of the friends. And we were just like, we all thought it was so cute. And that's
because boys were gross back then.
Yeah, boys are gross, but also remember, you didn't want to draw the attention of anybody who's going to make fun of you. And she was running around with this big red lips. And of course, I wasn't in charge of it, but these, dingy parents feel like, well, that's just going to be perfect. And they didn't think about these little kids, but she was darling in it. And I can just envision you running around in your suspenders and your pants way up and the Steve Urkel kind of.
Yeah, right. So good. It was just a lot of fun. And, and when I think about the different parts that sort of stood out to me, another time I was the villain of this, Prohibition era show called The Drunkard. Right. Oh. And it was like a musical, but at the same time, it was weird because there'd be people on the side of the stage that would hold up signs that said boo and hiss or cheer and applause.
Oh, yeah.
And so when the heroes came out, they would do that and the audience would play along and they're like, hooray. And each character had a theme song. So when you came out, they'd play, oh, the hero, the heroine, there's here. And then for me, I was the villain. So they'd play my dun, 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 dun. And then everyone would be like, boo, hiss. And I'd come out and I'd scowl at the audience. And then, with my top hat and cane. And so it's just, I just loved entertaining people. And I found that, later on in life, marketing and all these things, webinars had my attention, but then really podcast clicked for me, where is a way to you still be on a stage in a way, right? Like we're connected here. We're having a one-to-one conversation. This is so great about this whole methodology too. People can be connecting with their ideal customer and no one's on their phone, right? You and I, we can't do it. Like we couldn't manage to have a conversation. I mean, we said you're either thinking or you're listening. Well, nowhere in that sentence is you're on your phone, you're checking your email. How many times have we done sales calls or other calls where prospects are just literally checking their email? I've done it. I've tried to cut it short, but they want to show me the stupid saw. I don't want to see it anymore. I'm on my email, right? But when you're on a one-on-one interview like this, you're giving them your attention. There's respect and they give it back to you.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So, well, Casey, this has been an amazing episode. I have been just thoroughly entertained, but I 100% believe getting out of the revenue maze is listening, definitely listening. And I just have loved every moment of it. So tell us a little bit about where our listeners can actually find you, connect with you. If nothing else, they'll have a great entertaining time with it. Tell us where they can get with you.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned that listening is the key to get out of the maze. In my mind, I thought like you're in the revenue maze, literally someone is telling you how to get out, right?
Yeah.
It's like your customer's literally saying this way, this is where, and it's like, I'm not, no, stop. I got this. It's like, no, just listen, people. And then literally you in this podcast are telling people how to get out of the maze as well. So it's like, we just need to stop for a second, listen to a podcast like this, listen to our customers, and launching a podcast is the way to do that. So the best way to get in touch with me, so a couple ways. One is email, super direct, casey@ringmaster.com. Shoot me an email. Hey, this podcast thing sounds interesting. How does it work? How do you track the ROI? Because yes, I mean, we can get into that. That's a whole nother show, but there's 100% trackability with podcasting ROI. And actually one deal closing pays for the whole thing for a year, right? So it's like, it's pretty impressive the way it works out like that. But yeah, shoot me an email, casey@ringmaster.com. Obviously, ringmaster.com is the web address to check out some of the other shows we have. My shows are on there, other shows. This show, which is fantastic, is on there. So check out all the shows, and have a conversation. That would be my suggestion is, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about who you're trying to talk to. That's the only thing you have to prepare or to think about before you talk with a team like myself or my team, is just who's your dream? Who would you just dream to have on a call? And then let's go out and get them on there for you. Let's go get them on the show for you. That's what the team does. So anyways, that's my email, my web address, my podcasts are called The Hardcore Marketing Show. Your episode is still one of the most popular on the show. I'd encourage people to check that out. Maybe we'll link to it in the show notes. Yeah, absolutely. And then there's another show I have called Leadership in Action, talking to other CEOs of different companies. And yeah, LinkedIn is always a great place as well. And I would encourage people, final thing is, if you like this podcast, you're listening to this now, go and rate it, go and review it, give a shout out, to Valerie. She's doing a great job, and we got to get out of the maze. And the only way to do that is together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And for all the listeners on the Revenue Maze, I loved this show, and just Casey Cheshire. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you again.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
So there you all have it. This is another episode of the Revenue Maze. As Casey said, go on, like it. If you want more content, want to reach out, you can connect with us on LinkedIn under the Revenue Maze. Thanks again, everybody. Thank you all for joining another great episode. For show notes, links, and resources, visit revenuemaze.com. And never forget, you are why.